Discover the best in local business news with a subscription to the IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. For a limited time, try us out for just $1 a week for 8 weeks. Claim this limited time offer now at ibj.com/trial offer.
And Colt memorabilia had been moved out of the Colt complex in Owings Mills, and the Colt employees had been told that the team was going to Indianapolis.
For the first time in the city of Indianapolis's history, the start of a pro football season had great significance. While the NFL is beginning its 65th year, Indianapolis is embarking on its first season as the host of a professional football team.
More than 4 decades, a Super Bowl championship. From Peyton to Andrew, to where the Colts are now with Philip Rivers. There's been a common thread that is written and reported about all of it. He's Colts beat reporter and Beech Grove, Indiana native, Mike Chappell, and he's my guest on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by the longtime Colts beat writer and reporter, a legend in Indiana sports writing, to be sure, Mike Chappell with Fox 59 and CBS 4 for the past number of years now. And Mike, thanks for taking time for the podcast.
Pleasure talking to you. It's always good catching up with you and other folks around in the media business.
Well, I'll tell you, your business, the business of the NFL and the business of the Colts, we were talking before we got started here, never a dull moment. As we're taping, not sure when we're going to publish this podcast, but as we are talking now, the Colts are in a bit of an interesting situation, and kind of the breaking news, if you will, is with Philip Rivers. What do you make of this? Colts obviously in a predicament at the quarterback position. Philip Rivers, what are you hearing? What's happening?
Yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures. They signed him they're going to sign him to the practice squad, which with the idea that either this week in Seattle or next week, the Monday night game with San Francisco, he will be their starting quarterback. No, you don't bring him in here and just let him sit there. So at some point he will be their starter. And that's just because they're down. Here we are in December, and they've lost Anthony Richardson's on IR with that eye injury. They've given no indication that he's going to be cleared to play again this year. And then this past week, you've got Daniel Jones with a ruptured Achilles. He's done for the year. And, oh, by the way, Riley Leonard, the rookie quarterback, sprained a knee ligament, a ligament in his right knee, and he's questionable for Sunday. So until Rivers shows up, the only healthy quarterback is Brett Rippon, who's on the practice squad, and he hasn't played since 2023. So it's never a good thing when you have to go deep on a depth chart at a position, and it certainly isn't when that position isn't quarterback.
Wow. I mean, you follow this, obviously. How realistic is it? A guy of Rivers' age, great career, obviously, but a guy of his age and someone who hasn't taken a snap in an NFL game in 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. Well, it's going to happen. Now, realistic about playing well, that's what you're talking about. And he'll be, I think, the 5th quarterback at age 44 to start a game. It's the Tom Brady's and Vinny Testaverde's and Steve DeBerg's, Warren Moon. It's certainly not ideal. And the only thing that will help is that he and Shane Steichen are close friends. They talk all the time. They were together with the Chargers for whatever it was, 5 or 6 years. The last 4 or 5, he was Steichen was the quarterback's coach. The last year in 19, he was offensive coordinator. So Rivers knows the offense. That's not it. And I was told that the workout he had Monday night for the Colts went well. They knew he would throw the ball well. It's how quickly do you get into football shape? He's 44. And the body doesn't generally get better the older you get. It's the other way around. So I don't know. But again, it just shows you where they're at, they're still, boy, if you take the quarterback situation out of the mix, which you can't do, but if you do, they've still got a workable path to the playoffs. I don't think they have much of a chance at Seattle. I don't care who's quarterbacking. But if they win their final 3 games, San Francisco, Jacksonville, and at Houston, they're in the playoffs. So no matter what happens on Sunday, they get in if they win their last 3 games. And they need something above competent play at quarterback to get it done. Whether he can do it, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that they don't believe Brett Rippon's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if Riley Leonard is ready to go, he is. But they drafted him in the 5th or 6th round to be a developmental guy, not to be the guy.
Yeah.
So, again, this is a desperate team trying to find answers. And when you get forget December, when you get into September and you're trying to find a quality backup, it generally doesn't happen. Guys are out there for a reason. Quarterbacks are out there for a reason. We saw that the last 5 or 6 years after Luck retired, the quality of quarterback they were able to find. Not very good, and Philip Rivers was one of them.
Yeah.
So, we'll see where this goes. If nothing else, the next few weeks will be entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. You've seen a lot in your 40-some years of covering the team. How does this rank in terms of kind of crazy situations, with the unfortunate drop in what's happened in the last number of weeks, and now this injury situation and the Rivers situation at quarterback? How does this rank among kind of crazy times for the franchise?
Well, if you watch social media, people think this is just a laughing stock and all that. But again, if you're any team in this situation, you reach, and at least they're talking, or they sign someone that they've had success with. But everything, in my mind, everything ranks behind 2022 when they signed Jeff Saturday out of the ESPN studios, and that just went to heck in a handbasket real quick. You know, whatever one of your games is you blow a 33-point halftime lead, it's not a good season.
Yeah.
So we'll see. This will either be another one of those, can you believe they did that? Or, hey, can you believe they did that? And look what happened. So we'll see. I tell you, I always get selfish from a media standpoint. And one of my big regrets is when Philip Rivers was here in 2020, it was the COVID year, and we did not talk to players face-to-face at all. So it was always on Zoom, and I was always told that Philip Rivers was one of the best locker room guys ever.
Mm-hmm.
So at the very least, we're going to get a chance to talk to Uncle Phil face-to-face. So that'll be enjoyable. Now, whether the games will be, I don't know.
Good stuff. Well, Mike, you have, again, no one has a better perspective on this franchise in Indianapolis than you. Started covering the team when the Colts arrived from Baltimore on the Mayflower. And I happened to be here working at Channel 6 at the time, so I covered that as well. I remember it very well. You were actually, when the Colts, remind me now, when the Colts arrived, were you actually the sports editor at the Anderson Herald Bulletin at the time?
Yeah, at the time it was the Anderson Bulletin, the afternoon paper.
Yeah.
It was near I'd been there for 10 years, and I was ready to move for a lot of reasons. And I had just had my interview with Bob Collins at the Star. And it was that summer, and it was sort of transitioning to Indy. I was still in Anderson, and that's where training camp was. So it was convenient to stay up there and do that. So I worked with John Banch for a couple of years, and it just worked. And then I've never really done, once he moved on from the beat in 88 or 89, that's been what I've done full time. So it just sort of worked out logistics wise. And, I've been doing it ever since. And I tell you, it's been some really good times. I'm glad I was able to deal with 2 Super Bowls, 1 win.
Yeah.
That sort of makes all the bad years, and there were some bad years, worthwhile. I always tell people that, if you're going to be a beat writer, and that's really changed over the years on what you do, but you really need to go through a 1-15, a 3-13, just to see how you really have to work at your
Mhm.
craft, because you get in December and the players don't want you in the locker room and you've got nothing to write about, but you still have to do your job. So,
Yeah.
bad years are sort of part of the process.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because there were the good years, but boy, there were the lean years, in those first number of years, here in Indianapolis and what that was like covering. So it is a challenge as a sports writer to be in that situation.
Well, yeah, because again, when they get it right away in the 84, 85, and 86, it was just the city was just happy to be
Right.
in the NFL. It was just sort of a novelty and a cool thing. And then the novelty wears off, and then they want to win. And of course they do. And the Ursays were trying to do what Jim Irsay was. And, little by little, they sort of took steps forward. They make the big trade for Eric Dickerson, which didn't work out in the long run, but initially it gave them a national identity. So it made sense. But it didn't work out in the end because.
Yeah.
And so it's really been kind of cool to see how they've grown. And but all they were early were seasonal blips,
Mhm.
with the magical season in '95 with Jim Harbaugh and Captain Comeback. And I still believe to this day that if they had beaten Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game, they would have won the Super Bowl, because, Dallas was ripe to be beaten and the Steelers didn't have it, but the Colts had something.
Yeah.
And then obviously everything changed with Peyton Manning. And from that time on, you know, quickly
Yeah.
they transformed into a football city.
Yeah, tell me what you remember about those very early years. Much different, obviously, than today. And I remember when Bob Irsay and Bill Hudnut and others came in the Hoosier Dome at the time and happened to be there. I'm pretty sure you were there as well. And I remember thinking to myself that this was a transformational moment for the city of Indianapolis. You could feel it being there.
Yeah, there were probably, I don't know, were there 10, 20,000 people in the
Oh yeah,
stands?
yeah,
And yeah, I was there working again at the time for Anderson, but I still see Hudnut and Bob Irsay walking in, hands raised in the air. I still see it.
yeah,
And it just, and I understand that a lot of the public either don't understand or don't agree. There's this partnership, and part of the partnership is the city giving favorable, deals and all that. And
yeah,
I remember going to when the Colts played the Rams, we go to St. Louis and you check out of your hotel in St. Louis and it's got a sports tax because visitors pay
yep,
for that home team stadium. Well, and that's what happens here. I understand people don't think it's worth it, but it is. When you're one of now 32 teams in the NFL, it's just different. I think, as much at the roots the Pacers are, I just think the NFL lifts you another status. And, one of the people that I've leaned on through the years and was one of the really main players in this was David Frick.
yep,
And he would tell me the quality of life that comes with an NFL franchise is invaluable.
yeah,
The recruiting tool it is for, you know, doctors and surgeons and symphony people and CEOs. And that's something you can't put a price on when you're listing things. But I do think it matters. And to this day, I wonder what would have happened if they don't draft Peyton Manning
mhm,
and if they don't go through that transformation as a franchise. I wonder to this day, are the Colts still here?
mm,
I think Jim Irsay did not want to move the team at all. But if they didn't come out of that 96, 97, funk and start winning, I don't know how he would have been able to not move the team. So
Yeah.
I look downtown, and I've talked to Chris Gall at Visit Indy, and Indy's one of the big destinations convention-wise
Yep.
nationally. And, maybe they have that draw downtown with the convention center without the Colts. I don't know. I think a lot of the expansion has gone hand in hand with the Colts being here. So I know I oversell that because this is sort of my lane, but I just think that the value of having this team here, even when you're struggling,
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
I think it's better to have a bad NFL team than no NFL team.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more, Mike. And I see the other side of the argument, the other side of the equation, but I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the impact and the impact the Colts have had. Thinking back to those to the early days, and obviously different ownership with Bob Irsay, what was it like covering the team, and how would you describe Bob Irsay's ownership of the franchise?
Volatile. I remember he had a sit down with, gosh, was it Ed Sorensen? I think. And I think it was Ed that said, "Well, Mr. Irsay, how much of football do you actually know?" And Bob
Oh,
said, "Just enough to be dangerous." And spot on. They should have rang bells in the background. Uh, he was a heating and cooling guy, and
yes. Yeah.
that's and you j and he was, he had his alcohol problems. Even Jim, his son, would tell me, "As long as you get to dad before 11 o'clock on a Friday, you're okay." But, Jim Irsay was a much different owner. Bob was volatile. I mean, the stories were, I remember there was a game in Frisco. They're on the road and they're getting beat up pretty good. And Jimmy had to intercept his dad at halftime. Bob was going to the broadcast booth to fire his father.
Oh my God.
So, that's the stuff they had to go through. And you cannot own and run a team with that type of volatility. You can't do it.
Yeah.
There are times to be drastic and make moves, but week to week and month to month, you can't do that. And the one thing that Jim Irsay did was he learned from his dad, some good, I guess, but how not to be an
Mm,
owner.
yeah.
It always got me frustrated when you nationally hear people say, "Well, Jim Irsay is just like his dad." No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He
Yeah.
he was 180 degrees, and Jim had his flaws. We know that they're well documented. But as an owner, he had the right priorities, and really one of the main priorities was what's best for the league.
Uh-huh.
He was one of those guys like the Rooneys and the Maras and Wellington and the Hunts, where yes, I'm trying to do what's best for my team, but I've got to keep the league in mind as well. And not all owners are like that.
Yeah, yeah, he seemed to have a real, a passion for a lot of things, passion for music, passion for the Colts, but a passion for the NFL too, and the history and the heritage of the league was important to him.
Well, yeah, they were again, you're one of now 32, but you're one of 32 and you guys work together. That's how it's gotten to this point, for good or bad. There's probably some bad aspects too, but this is about revenue sharing, and then that it flows to the players who get whatever it is, 49% of revenue, and quarterbacks are making
Yeah.
$60 million a year now. So yeah, he understood that I've got to do what's best for my team, but I've really got to do what helps advance the shield, NFL shield. He always embraced this international outreach.
Mhm.
Now, the Colts went to Tokyo, for crying out loud, and now they're in Europe and what, Buenos Aires.
Mhm.
And they're going to go to Australia, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
He understood that's what was good for the growth of the league. So he was able to do both, help grow the Colts and grow the NFL.
Yeah. Thinking back, Mike, and you mentioned it, the uh, important draft of Peyton Manning with that number one pick, and I guess it was 98, and the whole debate with Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. And as you think back on that, What do you remember about that? Because there were a lot of, I think, some good football people who were saying, "Hey, you gotta get Ryan Leaf." And thank God for the Colts and for Indianapolis and everyone else. Bill Polian decided to go with Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I don't know what the split was, 50-50, 60-40, but it's not like Leaf was just some guy.
Right.
A lot of people considered him with a higher upside because of the physical traits.
Yep.
And I've never believed, the further I get away from him, I never believed it went down to the last 2 weeks. At some point, I think maybe after the Colts put Peyton through a workout in Knoxville, I think their big question was, is there a question with arm strength? And they came away from that workout, private workout, hey, his arm strength's fine. Everything else was there.
Yeah.
So, and the few things that just resonate was where when Jim wanted to get away from the personnel guys and he met Peyton in Miami, had down there for lunch, and at some point, Peyton looked at him and said, if you draft me, I'll win for you. And that's when Jimmy said, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. And then later, when they met again here in Indy, Peyton took it a step further. If you don't draft me, I'll come back and kick your butt every time we play. So that was sort of his confidence and self-awareness. I always would joke with people that, two of the reasons the Colts were who they were was Bill Polian's first 2 first-round draft picks were Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James.
Yeah.
They're in the Hall of Fame. And it could have been Ryan Leaf and Ricky Williams. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people thought they should take Ricky Williams over this kid with dreads and gold teeth from Miami. So it's just crazy how, and again, things had to fall in place at the end of the 97 season for the Colts to be in position to take Peyton. They lost a game in Minnesota, and I can't remember whether it was Arizona lost or won. That gets fuzzy with me, but things happened on the last day of the season that gave the Colts a chance to take Peyton. So, we always joke that the football gods shined down on Irsay in 98 with Peyton and in 2012 with Andrew Luck. And maybe the gods want to be repaid over the last 7 years by how it's gone here since Luck retired.
Yeah, good point. Hey, much more ahead with Mike Chappell. When we return, we'll talk about maybe some of his favorite interviews, the future of the franchise, and more. That's when the Business and Beyond podcast returns. Stay with us.
As a bank, PNC prides itself on being boring. But the truth is they couldn't be more excited to serve the dynamic Indianapolis community. For nearly 160 years, they've quietly toiled away to deliver brilliant results for their equally brilliant clients. They have dedicated PNC teams throughout the local area all ready to do the boring work to help you unlock your own brilliance. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. PNC Bank, National Association member FDIC.
We build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America builds and maintains roads, bridges, and other essential infrastructure that make us the crossroads of America. So thanks to LIUNA members' work, Hoosiers have a better quality of life, like access to utilities, easier routes to jobs, schools, or medical care, and deliveries keep moving. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Mike Chappell, Fox 59, CBS 4, the longtime Colts beat writer and reporter here in Indianapolis. And Mike, you continue, of course, to cover the Colts, but you cover them in the Mike Chappell media room. And I've got to ask you, a richly deserved honor for all of your great work that you continue to do. What was that like for you? What did that mean to you to have that honor and to have the media room named after you?
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. At least it's not the Mike Chappell Memorial Media Room. At least I'm still alive. But it was funny. It was just a regular Wednesday out there, and I go out there the way we always do, and we were told to be there a little bit early, so I was. And we're sitting and waiting for Shane Steichen to come in, and then all of a sudden the door opens up and my wife walks in and 7 or 8 of my buddies from the Star walk in, and I probably cussed under my breath. But it was a great gesture from Jim Irsay and Pete Ward and Matt Conti, the PR guy, had his hand in it. So, yeah, it just, this is our own what we do is not we're not creating new things. We're just
Yep.
doing our job, and you try to do whatever your job is in your lane, you try to do it as well as you can do it, as fair as you do it and objective as you can.
Yep.
So I guess it's a reflection that I did things the right way for 30 some, 40 some years. But it was, I'm still kind of floored that the guys still in the press room still give me a hard time about it. And sometimes, like, Notre Dame's got that play like a champion
Right. Right.
above the thing. I said, you guys are supposed to kind of tap my back on the way to the locker room. But no, it's a cool thing. And fortunately, I'm around to enjoy it. And
Yeah.
hopefully when I leave, they won't take a crowbar and pry that back off the wall.
I'm sure they will not. Hey, Mike, sometimes I think it's unfair to ask people who've done something for a long time kind of to pick out their one or two favorite memories or that kind of thing. But as you look at all the players you've dealt with, is there one that or a couple that stand out as really kind of your personal favorites from an interviewing standpoint, relationship standpoint?
Probably the 2 guys that I've enjoyed working with the most and still do. It's Reggie Wayne and Edgerrin James. They're just different, and I mean that in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
They're very personable. They're very honest. When Edgerrin was here, it was, I mean, here's this kid from Immokalee, Florida, and just a different, comes from a different culture. But he and I hooked up, connected early on, and I still consider him a friend. And that's the one thing, when you're in this business, it's hard to be friends with the people you cover because there are times you gotta
Sure.
be hard on them or whatever. But Edgerrin always understood, like most of the good players understand that as long as you're fair, that's what they want. But Edge was my first favorite, just because there was a connection. I don't know what it was, where it's a connection. Here I'm some old white guy from Beech Grove connected with a guy from Immokalee, a guy of the world. And then Reggie comes along. Maybe this is a University of Miami thing. I don't know. But Reggie was great to work with. And now we get him. He's a position coach.
Yeah.
And we talk again, once a month. And during his time with the Colts, he always talked on Fridays. It was Fridays with Reggie. And I can't tell you how many times I thought I was done with my work for the week. And then we talked to Reggie on Friday, and you have to write something else because he just understands, how to handle things. But, again, talking with Peyton, the one thing that always, and here I go, I'm name dropping, but the one thing that struck me about Peyton is I first met him at the Combine in 98. There were probably 20 of the Combine back then wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
There were probably 20 of us. We had him talking with him at the Louisiana State Bar and Grill. They're downtown. And we all talk, and then we go our separate ways. And then I went to the private workout later, a month later probably, in Knoxville. We couldn't go inside, but we stood outside. We're waiting outside for interviews. And a handful, there wasn't many of us there. And Peyton walks down a hallway with Jim Mora and Tom Moore and Bill Pullian and his agent, Tom Condon. And we just sort of walked by each other. He says, "How you doing, Mike?" Yeah. And I thought, how in the heck do you remember me?
Yeah.
But that's part of who Peyton is. He remembers that. And I consider him a friend. If I need Peyton or Reggie or Edgerrin, like right now, I can text them, and if it's important, they'll get back with me. So I treasure that. But there's so many other. I mean, the guys you deal with, Joe Adai and Tarek Glenn and Freeney and Mathis and on and
Yeah.
on and on. Dominic Rhodes, Dallas Clark. It's really kind of cool to where you can, at some level, get beyond the fact that they're players, great players. You get a little bit of see their personal lives.
Yeah.
Bob Sanders. I saw Bob Sanders at Dwight Freeney's Hall of Fame induction, post induction party in Canton. And he's standing there and he walks over and says, "You're not going to talk to me?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I thought you weren't going to say anything to me." And I'm saying, "Well, Bob, I'm giving you your space."
Yeah.
So it is kind of cool to realize that a lot of the players, respected how you did your job or whatever, I guess. But it's really cool when you're able to get behind under layers. And one more is, remember Anthony Gonzalez,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
first round pick from Ohio State. He was never going to be a lifer in the NFL. And it turns out he goes on to Congress.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we always saw that when he was here. Some players you can go up to and just kind of shoot the bull and all this. Gonzo didn't like that, but if he had something to talk about, he had time.
Yeah.
So it's always cool to see those kind of guys and then get away from the game for a little bit and then run into Antoine Bethea or Gerard Powers and talk for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Tom Moore and people like that. So it's a relationship business we're in. And I've really treasured some of the lasting relationships I've had.
Yeah. A couple more for you before I know you got to run and do an interview here in a minute. But how about coaches? I mean, the coaches you have covered run the gamut. You've got it, from a Tony Dungy, and I assume you would have covered Frank Kush, right?
I was there for Frank Kush. He wasn't there all that long.
Right. I mean, you look at the kind of a dichotomy there, when you look at a coach like Kush and a coach like Tony Dungy. Any thoughts on kind of favorite coaches that you had the pleasure of covering?
I enjoyed Frank Wright. I really did. A really a faith-based man, but just a really good football guy. Tony Dungy was another level with his faith and dealing with the passing of his son as they did.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorites is Jim Mora. It gets such a bad rap, the Mora meltdowns and all that,
Yep.
and his diddly poo and the playoff soundbite. He was just a very down to earth, honest, straightforward guy. And I enjoyed the 4 years we had with him. Shane Steichens, it has been good to work with. Chuck Pagano. So all these guys you're right, they're different.
Yeah.
And going back in the days with Ron Meyer, who was as close to a carnival barker that you're ever going to see.
Yeah.
And he was the right guy at the right time when they were like 0-13, and they get rid of, Dowhauer and bring in Meyer, and it was time.
Yeah.
And then it was time for him, and then it was time to leave because his shtick just wore out.
Yeah.
But it's really been a great ride with those guys, and I still, I'm going to talk to Frank Wright in a little bit for an interview about Phillip Rivers. But it is just kind of cool. Again, what I like and what I really enjoy is when you're fair with these guys. After they leave, if I need something, I can call.
Yeah.
I can call these guys up and talk to them, and they'll take my call because at least I was fair with how I treated them.
Yeah. Final question for you, and that's your take on the state of the franchise going forward. Obviously, new leadership and ownership with the sisters. Carly is CEO, Kaylin, Casey in the mix. A lot of businesses struggle with a succession plan, but it seems as though they kind of had this in the works because Carly, I think, right, was involved with NFL meetings and all the various iterations or workings of the team and that kind of thing. Your take on the new leadership and how the franchise is positioned for the future.
One thing that you probably know more than I do, because this is not my lane, is financially what are the obligations, inheritance taxes, and all that. I do not know that. I do know that all of a sudden when Jim passed away, they weren't saying, "My gosh, what are we going to do?"
Right.
This was a situation where Jim learned from his father through all the years, from doing all the jobs from the bottom up. He always talked about, well, I was out, picking up jocks when I was a young kid. I don't think Carly, Casey, or Kaylin were picking up jocks.
Yeah.
But they were involved in so many different areas, and Jim allowed the daughters to sort of find out what area they wanted. And as it turned out, Carly was really, really interested in the football side. She's been in, gosh, I don't know how many years, 10, 12 years, in meetings, at NFL owners meetings, and in position meetings, and on the sidelines, and all. It's funny how so many people are making so much of a big deal that, well, there's Carly, an owner on the sidelines. She's been down there for years. And now you're just noticing it because she now is the primary owner. Well, her and her sisters.
Yeah.
But that's what's important, is when the time came for her to take, and I keep referring to her because she's really running the team. She had been doing this for the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years with Jim and his failing health. So she had already been doing the heavy lifting with this. Now, Jim always stayed involved, but she was the one preparing for this. So this did not take them by surprise. And with Jim's addiction issues, they knew at some point this could happen in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So I think they've done as much as possible to prepare. Now whether it's going to be enough, I don't know. She'll do everything she can. There's no question. But moving forward, we start off talking about Phillip Rivers. I don't know what their future is at quarterback.
Right.
I know Jones is going to miss probably the start of the next season, and he'll be a free agent. So if you don't get the quarterback situation fixed, not a whole lot else matters.
Yep. Well, Mike Chappell, it's been a real treat to catch up with you. You've done great work and continue to do so for so many years. Thanks for taking the time. Good luck with this Phillip Rivers story and covering the rest of the season. I hope you're right. I hope the Colts can get it turned around and make their way into the playoffs. But thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. If you ever need something, just reach out.
Will do. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. You can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gerry Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Hey, Mike, that was awesome. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Let me know when it's going to be on or whatever. And I'll down there.
Yeah, Teresa will shoot you an email. That's great. Again, apologize for the delays.
No problem. Have a good day.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm Tiffany Souter, mom of 4, wife, entrepreneur, and host of the Life of And podcast. For years, I built my life with brute force, a successful business, a growing family, and absolutely zero margin. I was tired, snappy, and felt constantly behind, and I was too afraid to admit it. Everything changed when I stopped trying to do more and started building systems that actually worked for my real life. If you too are craving more peace, more presence, and just more time for you, I'd love for you to join me on the Life of And. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app or listen at ibjpodcast.com.
Want to give your team a real edge? The IBJ Group Plan delivers unlimited access to every story, every report, every video from IBJ and Inside Indiana Business for your whole team. Cover some or all of your employees with one simple payment. The more you add, the more you save. It's smart, it's flexible, and it saves you up to 30% off the standard rate. Already have IBJ subscribers in your office? Group up and save big. Learn more and get started now at ibj.com/group-plan.